Well, it's the week of love, and here we are, your wild crew, just ready to bring you some of our own special brand of love. We hurt the ones we love is what we'll learn tonight, I think, in this episode. But before we get into that, it being Valentine's week and all that, I did do something special just for our audience. I wrote a little poem for you, because obviously the homemade gifts are always the ones that we value the most. So I did write a little poem for you. So here it goes. Blood sacrifices are red, corpses are blue. Get lost and you're dead. It's Wicked Wild Season 2.
Sounds like a weird spell you see in a fortune cookie.
I like it.
That works for me. So thanks again, and sincerely, we're so excited to jump into season 2. We're so grateful for all of our listeners over the past year, and for all of the support and encouragement you've given us. We've got a lot of new things coming. You're going to hear some format changes. You heard the new fat beats that we threw on the front of the podcast. The hosts here haven't heard it yet until they get the final edited version, but we did change up our theme music for the podcast. But before we get into the review, I do want to introduce and welcome each of our hosts. And we're going to start with Jaime up in New York City. Got an important question for you, Jaime. As I'm watching this, and then each of you are going to get a question directly related to the movie that we watched this week. But for you, I just need to know, are you the kind of person that is going to voluntarily take off your shoes in order to ford a creek that's 8 feet wide?
And not my pants, so that I'm soaking wet anyway, but just my feet are dry when I come out the other side?
Yeah.
No, I'm probably going to walk through wet, which I'm sure will end up being a mistake later on in the day.
No,
they were already soaked because they didn't take their pants off.
I have never understood, and I've hiked and forded creeks and little rivers and shallow areas before. I've never understood the logic of taking your shoes off and then walking through something that's is going to be slick. You have no idea if there's broken glass in it. I've hiked in wet boots. It's not great, but it's certainly better than gashing your foot and then having to walk out.
I mean, besides the protection alone, which is why they make like those aqua socks back in the 90s or 80s. But like, besides that alone, like I really questioned why it was just when it was like almost waist deep, but not like thigh deep. Why didn't they all just get down to their underwear so that they had dry clothes for the rest of the hike?
Exactly.
But no, that was too logical of a decision to make.
Fantastic. Well, that's a piece of free advice to everybody. If you're having to ford creek, just leave your friggin' shoes on. You're wearing them for a reason. And wet shoes are certainly much more bearable than the options that can happen if you take a bad
or
step,
go naked, or take your pants off,
or take everything off.
And go naked.
Throw it in the river.
And so then it's still wet.
Helicopter across,
And then we have Jeff up in the Burg of Pitts. Welcome, Jeff. Glad to have you on our season 2 opener.
Glad to be here.
So I have a question for you. As a professional EMT, are you dressing a deep ass cut that's been in mud and water with a dirty bandage and then making that person keep hiking for the next 2 days?
Well, obviously, I mean, he's the professional. If I was an EMT, I wouldn't even have bandaged it. I'd just rub some leaves and dirt on it and say, get moving. I said, put your pants back on and get going.
Wait, why'd you take their pants off?
To go through the water.
That's what you do.
So you're gonna clean the wound before you go to the water?
Haven't you ever been treated by an EMT? They usually ask you to take your pants off.
I've never had one ask me to take my pants off.
Jeff, that may be a personal problem.
Yeah, what kind of EMT is you been seeing?
Hey, live and let live,
Like if you get hit by a car, they're like, you're like, oh, my body's broken. They're like, yeah, but first, take your pants off.
Yeah, sir, I've got a terrible headache in my eyes. My vision's painful. Take your pants off. You're the professional.
That actually explains a lot, because I went to get a physical and the doctor took his pants off. So.
Whoa.
And did you ask him to turn his head and cough?
He asked me to ask him to turn his head. I said, this is weird.
Wait a minute.
Only my EMT can say I don't wear pants.
Yeah, I said, only my eye doctor can tell me to take my pants off. I said.
And then we've got John up in Detroit, Michigan. Detroit Rock City. So my question for you.
Oh, wait, Dave. Here. Wait. I think the way I'm used to hearing it on the show when I listen is you ask me if you can ask me a question first, and then I can say whether I want to hear it or not.
No. That's what other hosts do. That's what lesser
hosts.
hosts.
Okay. I just want to make sure I understood the show. I know it's season 2. We've only been doing this for a year, so I've been hearing Eli ask everybody, "Can I ask you a question?"
No, I just chuck questions out there. Yeah, I just chuck questions out there, and you can just say, "No, I'm not answering that. That's none of your damn business."
Okay. Oh, I can do a no comment. I've never had this opportunity. Let's go.
So my question for you, being from Detroit, I mean, people up there are hard, but are you going to openly insult and laugh at the creepy local with questionable motives when you're out in the middle of the woods?
I will answer your question with a question. Do they have an aquarium and a Confederate flag in their living room?
As a matter of fact, and odd you would ask that, but he actually does. Yeah.
Then of course I'm going to insult him right to his face after they invite me into their home.
Where do you want him to have the aquarium?
I mean, it could be in his bedroom. It could be on his front porch.
Can you spell aquarium?
Aquarium?
Yeah.
Are you really, you want to turn this into spelling content? Okay. Aquarium.
Hey, he put an L in there. We all heard it.
I don't. Eli, can you not spell aquarium? I'm very confused right now.
You heard the way I talk on like.
I have, but yeah.
Eli, are you doing your SATs right now? Is that what's happening?
Hey, don't keep on the DL, man.
He's doing his homework. Oh, well, guys.
What I thought about the movie is Farmer Brown had 17 apples.
Eli's doing the opposite of ChatGPT. He's out there making sure that people's intelligence is repressed.
Yeah. How do you think I stay ahead of the game? Got the smartest one in the room.
And so you hear there, as we're talking around him, you've got our buddy Elijah Woods, Eli, up in the Burg of Pitts, which happens to be in the Sylvania of Pins.
Sure, that's one way to put it.
And my question for you, as a man who loves trees, are you going to, in the middle of the night, already nearly handicapped with an open wound that your EMT friend Jeff has just dressed for you? Are you going
after you have me take my pants off? Yeah.
Are you going to voluntarily be climbing up a tree to retrieve your friend's drone in a haunted forest?
I feel like in all personally, like if this was all of us here and Jeff just had me take my pants off to treat a wound on my foot
with a dirty rag,
it's cold. There's like these hillbillies following us. And one of you go like, "Hey, by the way, you crawl up that tree and get my drone that I keep annoying you with." I'm going to say, no, I'm not. You can go to hell.
Especially since everybody else is able-bodied and you can barely walk.
Like, I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Are you still wearing your pants?" Yeah, go up your own fucking tree. Okay.
Well, if you haven't guessed, we're going to be reviewing Blair Witch, the 2016 requel is what I'm going to call it. It's not a remake. It's not really a sequel. It's kind of a requel. But before we get in that, we are going to introduce a new segment that my brother Eli is going to do. It's called Wicked Whispers, where we kind of bring out things that we're excited about that's happening in the news of the paranormal, conspiracy, wilderness stuff. So take it away, Anchorman Eli.
This is a big week, because two stories come out in the last couple weeks. That's kind of cultivated that people are being like, "Wait a minute." It's about our friends, the aliens. The U.S. government came out because, as most of us know, over the last couple of years during the pandemic, they just decided now as good as time as any to admit that UFOs are real. They didn't know what they were. And so you have the government who is handling the military side of UFO reporting the sightings, NASA handling the citizen side. So they announced this week that over the last few months, there's been over 350 sightings of UFOs. The question was posed, well, do we know what those are? And they're like, well, for about 117 of them, they're weather balloons, they're planes, people are confused. And they're like, what about the other one? They're like, we really don't know. We got no clue. And they're like, are you going to look into it? They're like, don't even know where to start. So then a university in China who happens to around the same time have one of the largest radio telescopes in the planet. Normally they use it to search for hydrogen clusters in the universe. They were partnered with a bunch of other universities in the U.S., England, South America and stuff, where like they were all looking for these things. And somebody posed, well, this is a radio satellite. Couldn't we use it to send signals and see if anybody responds? So then they just about face decided they're going to use this sumbitch to look for extraterrestrials potentially. They sent out over 6,000 signals since the beginning of the year. They received two signals back. When they asked, what are those from? They go, don't know. So you got the government. They don't know. University in China with the biggest satellite in the world. They don't know. What's happened, folks? Keep your eyes towards the skies.
Yeah,
That's all I gotta say.
It's the worst game of caller chicken ever. Back when I was in high school, when you would just call or dial random numbers, and then when somebody actually picks up and you hang up immediately, it's the worst version of that.
Yep. Problem is they don't know who's answering.
Exactly.
Like, don't know.
Well, that must be why they're floating all these balloons out there, to kind of help them triangulate the signal, right? They're just trying to help make the signal stronger for them.
Seems reasonable.
Maybe. Yeah. Hey, no, that was 117. I like the 350. Like those were like weather balloon stuff like that. It's the other ones that are just like, no.
It's something we don't know what, but we're going to keep talking to it. We don't know.
But my favorite part is you can find the article on CNN. But my favorite part of the article is at the end of it. They're like, well, should American citizens be concerned that over half these you don't know what they are or what they're doing? And they went, I wouldn't worry about it.
Everything's fine.
I wouldn't worry about it.
What's worrying?
They're like, we don't even know what it is anyways. So I wouldn't worry about it. That was their advice.
Yeah. They need to worry more about the cost of eggs right now.
They're like, listen, don't worry about the shit flying all around. We don't even know what it is. Who cares?
What are we going to do? Star Wars or something.
Exactly.
Those are fun aliens.
Like, if you see Avatar, go watch Avatar. Don't worry about this.
No, do not watch Avatar. You're never going to get that time back, Eli.
Listen,
I loved it,
John. I know
it's easily the best, worst movie ever made.
Listen, I don't believe you, John, because you know what I think your problem is? No movie experiences come close to that time when you were a child at a sleepover with a certain special friend watching Friday the 13th Part 3.
Oh no! Every week I get to talk to Jeff whenever it is I show up to the campfire, and now Jeff's here with us. And I'm fine. Everything is whole again.
Do you remember that day, though, John? Remember when we were out in the sandbox playing?
I do. I do. It's a great day.
I treasure that memory always.
I've never seen either of you happier.
For
those that are listening to the podcast, Jeff has just thrown up a background. You're going to need to make a special trip to YouTube just to see what Jeff has put together.
I don't want to say I was better at sand than you, but
Hey, I'll give you all the kudos there, a friend.
That picture is so weird. I don't take it away. Put it away.
What this movie reminded me of, though? Hey, Eli, you remember when we went on that camping trip on that boat?
Oh, yeah, it was really fun. It was a fun time. It was a real fun time.
Right? Yeah, that was.
Well, we were looking for the Blair Witch.
Right. I can see you guys have taken Mary's photoshopping course.
Yeah, we were looking for the Blair Witch.
Yeah.
What is happening, Jamie?
I have no idea.
So we're going to get.
We ended it all with a fun trip to the beach.
Oh, there it is.
I love it.
The crisp high five.
Why is your body in silhouette but not your...
Well, I don't want to get in. I mean, that's
the sun setting,
that's the glow of happiness.
Yeah. What do you like? I mean, if you've never been to the beach, you turn into a silhouette when you go to the beach right here.
But not your
from
head.
the neck down.
Just from the neck down. So.
Just the glow of joy that they get to be together.
My God.
Yeah, that's what friendship really looks like right there.
Now, we had a couple beers.
It's not over.
It's never over.
Just remember, folks, for all the listeners at home, it's only half of the story. You have to go watch the video.
Yeah, we're doing a little background bingo on Jeff's background. Apparently,
I'm sure this is great.
Really
listening.
fun Photoshop of Jeff and John's.
Those are heads
friendship blossoming. Yeah.
Those are courtesy of Eli. If anybody out there is looking for some professional photoshopping, just get hold of Eli. He does a really good job.
Cheers to the Mole King.
So before we jump into the actual review, we do want to do a quick on the fly synopsis. If you've been around, listen to us, you know what this is. This is where I pick one of our hosts and ask them a question, which helps me determine who has to give the synopsis. None of my other hosts have any idea who I'm going to pick, but that person then has to give a quick on the fly synopsis. And John is going to be the question receiver today. And so my question for you is, what do you think the Blair Witch actually is? Is it a demon? Is it actually a witch? Or is it an elemental?
Ooh, those are good. Those are really, all those sound way better than this movie too. I'm thinking of it. So I'm going to go with a real witch.
It's a real witch. Well, our own host, the witchiest of us all, Jaime, you get to give the synopsis on this movie now.
Okay, I'm going to do it with these glasses on too.
Fantastic.
By God, this is the easiest synopsis on the planet. So I know a lot of people are going to call us a requel. They want it to kind of be a sequel though, because the events in this movie unfold with the first movie existing, right? In reality, our lead character, I honestly can't even remember his name. I want to say it's like James, or am I making that up? He's going back into the woods.
It is James.
Okay. He's going back into the woods to find his sister, who is Rachel. Mm-hmm. Is that her name? Rachel Nailed from the first one.
No, it's Heather.
Heather, whatever.
Oh my God. Where is Rachel someone in this movie? Anyway, Heather. That sounds actually much more correct. Sorry. James is back into the woods. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. James is back into the woods because he's convinced that Heather is still alive and somehow living in the woods for, I don't remember how many years. Is it supposed to be 10 years after the fact?
Might as well be 30.
So there's another documentary that's going to go find her. It's going to document him trying to find her. I'm not really sure what the girl's whole motive behind the documentary is. I'll be honest. I couldn't pay attention to anybody's backstory in this. And then the same exact movie kind of exists until they get to the house and you're just there longer and you get a few more things. But all your great, not so scary jump scares are there. All your great, very shaky, if not more shaky camera angles are there. Now complete with stutter and drone footage, guys.
Sick.
That's
and who
really
the hell found these tapes and edited this
don't
piece
even
of trash?
edit them together because the camera cuts jump from someone's camera to another camera to another camera, but somehow this is found footage.
Jaime, you forgot the most crucial new evolution in this stupid found footage category. The ear cam.
Oh yeah, but that's kind of like Rex cam, which was way better. But yeah, like the ear cam, which makes absolutely no sense. It looks like an earpiece, but somehow it has like a little camera on it.
Yeah, and anyway, apparently GPS.
That's the plot of this movie. There is no plot to this movie. It's another Blair Witch, and it's exactly like the first one.
Exactly like the first. Okay, well,
Terrible.
We're going to get into that conversation. Oh well, yeah. I mean, if as far as grading, you could say it, but we'll get into it. But we're going to first jump over to John and let him kick off his overall thoughts. You know, first time saw it. What did you think of it? What do you think of it now?
That's what I think of this movie. Terrible. Don't watch. Do not recommend unless you hate yourself. But this movie had some spookier elements to it. Like the house was cool. The coolest concept they totally botched was the time dilation. Found footage, I think, is not my type of genre. I typically don't like it. The shaky camera makes me annoyed / nauseous at moments. It's not coherent. I mean, I'm used to stupid people in horror movies. These ones are especially stupid. The witch was kind of cool. The house was cool and creepy. But honestly, if you're going to do a cool concept like, oh, we're missing time, don't do it once and then, oh, now it happens over and over again at moments that don't matter. Like, make it matter. It just doesn't matter. You have crazy weirdos showing up for no reason and telling them you have to follow this witch that can't look at you. And then they put this mythology against the dude in the end of the last one, that how in the world would he know that he's got to look in a corner? It makes no sense. Horror movies don't necessarily make sense, and that's part of the fun. But this literally makes no sense. How would a guy that's never seen this witch know I got to stare in the corner, otherwise she's going to see me? and the witch is going to see you and the camera lady looking at her through the camera. It's the same as looking at her. That arbitrary rule is not going to stop her. It's stupid.
The movie rules don't work.
Your rules don't work.
Fair enough. Yeah. All right, Eli, first time you saw this?
No, this is like the third time I've watched this all the way through. It's all right. There's parts of it I like. I don't like that they turn into a tree ant. I didn't really care for that.
What?
An ant. She's like a tree person.
Oh.
Yeah,
like Lord of the Rings reference.
Yeah, it's a Lord of the Rings reference.
I've never seen that. Oh no,
that
I didn't see it.
Me.
I'm sorry.
They turn into a tree?
I saw it. I went to sleep during it.
No, she's like a tree person.
I thought she was just a tall, naked lady.
Well, yeah, but like she's got the branches coming off of her.
She doesn't.
Oh,
yeah, in a couple of the scenes.
Okay. Like a tall, greasy, like naked lady.
Yeah, I was like covered in tree branches.
She looked like a mole person to me.
She lives in the woods.
How dare you? But like I didn't care for my problem too is I didn't like that they try to connect it to the first one in the sense of like, so like the joy of the first was like, this is real. But then we all knew it's not, right? But then the second one, they're like, but is it? Because here's her brother. And he saw a YouTube video that she's randomly in at the house.
That wasn't her, though.
Yes, it was. Oh, no,
it wasn't.
Yeah,
but like they thought.
Lisa.
Spoiler alert.
It's one of my biggest pain points.
But
of this
they
movie,
they thought, and like so like that whole thing was kind of dumb. But I like some of the scares. Probably the most thing I enjoy about this is, like I said, I like the book series, like the 2 book series they came out with when the first one first came out. And I like, because when I was watching this the first time, I'm like, oh, they're putting elements of the book into the actual lore. And then when I was watching it with Mary, I was like, oh, this is cool. She's like, yeah, because you read these books that no one else fucking read. She goes, how do I know? She's like, it didn't make any sense. I was like, why is this happening? I'm like, that's a valid point. Like, it's all right. I like the original better.
I want it documented. Start of season 2. You'll never hear Eli say this again to someone else. That's a valid point.
Like, that's valid. That's valid. Because it's weird, because like the time thing came from the books. And like it plays in the game too, like they did the Blair Witch game, like that time thing plays in there. But like it's kind of weird that like it's kind of cool to introduce it. And like they don't necessarily have to explain it, but like it doesn't follow.
No, I'm sorry. We're gonna cut right into me. They do need to explain it, because that's my biggest pain point.
When I say explain it, like they don't have to spell it out, but they should follow the pattern. Like there's a distinct pattern to the time thing.
Yeah, it should have a logic
in the book and in the game, that like this movie was kind of like they wanted to use it, but then they're like, fuck it, we're just gonna like do whatever with it. And like so like it made it hard to follow. And like I'm not saying they have to come right out and be like, well, the time continuum, space time, whatever, but like there was no logic to it or even semi logic for anybody to even follow it.
And it has to matter. There's no consequence to it.
That's my biggest.
Right.
Well, we didn't even get. That's my biggest complaint, is that it doesn't. Never mind. We're not talking about it.
No,
yet.
you're next, Jaime. So jump.
Don't jump right in it. This is my first time watching it, because why would I watch this when we know how I feel about the first one? Although I did see the second one, so I shouldn't really say that. But guess how I felt about this one? The exact same way I feel about the first one, and
hashtag loved it.
Evident in my synopsis that I butchered. I just thought this was terrible. There's nothing about this, and I could and to John's point, I'm not a found footage person either, and I've said that before, and I think I said it in episode 1 of this show, because we discussed the first Blair Witch, that it's not a genre that works for me, except for like 3 or 4 films, none of which we've covered yet. But this one is infuriating for everything that everybody just said, in that besides just all the nonsense stuff and everybody being so stupid, like John said, and the worst decisions, climbing a tree like Dave brought up, when your foot's split open for a fucking drone that somehow has been running for days or maybe weeks or months, because time is irrelevant here. But the thing with the time thing is, and Eli and I discussed this a little bit before we started, that if any of this information is pulled and you needed to know it because you read fucking books or played video games, which I do, but like, if that's needed to watch a movie, especially a movie of this caliber, where this isn't like this like lore and legend that we have like these fanatics about, and these geeks who have been reading these books forever, and things that have like, that's not acceptable to me to understand this movie. I had throwaway lines at least 3 times about time and time travel, and the video from the beginning, which when you get to that point, you realize is a video of them. So there's obviously a big time loop thing happening here, and there's zero explanation of it. And I don't need a monologue from a character giving me but there is nothing, it's not delved into or developed or expanded upon in any way besides one guy coming out of the woods and being like, we've been gone however many weeks or whatever, and they saying it's a few hours, then someone saying something else, then and the only reason I got confused and thought, and I know Heather was not in the video, but Heather is in that house, so he does see her, so she is stuck there. And again, but there's nothing. We're just going to start either making things up on our own or delving into books and the internet and Reddit to get my answers, which should not be the case. And I shouldn't have to hear, well, in the video games and the books, that's why no, I'm watching a movie, especially one that you're trying to quote unquote continue from a first one. And I've got I had no further information. I just ended up, it was preposterous. And the amount of time that we were in that house at the end, it's one thing to say you want more of the creepy house. I felt like I was there for 45 minutes. I was like, all right. She crawled through a tunnel and somehow ended up exactly where she fucking started. I don't even back in the house.
And didn't it used to be a shack, or did I
no, it was always a house. It was always a house.
Yeah, it was always that house. It was that house.
There was a basement, and there was it was always.
I remember the basement. I just didn't remember having the terrible horror cliche of going up the stairs to escape. Never fails.
Yes.
Well, Heather went upstairs in the first one, and then she hears Mike and then runs back down.
Yeah.
I think he goes upstairs looking for his sister, right? I don't know that anybody runs upstairs to escape in this one, do they? He goes, the second girl comes in.
Yeah. Because there's that conversation while they're out in the early hike where they talk about the argument that some people think it was the basement, some people thought it was the attic.
Yes, it was the attic or the basement, which of course, but
it was both, obviously.
Yeah.
Now it's both.
Yeah. All right, Jeff, jump in here, man. First time you saw this, is this your first viewing, or have you seen this before? What do you think of it?
Never seen it before. I thought it was a fantastic movie. Everything about it. No, it was garbage. Nothing made any sense. I didn't read the book. I didn't play the game. I didn't know what was happening most of the time. The found footage. Found footage movies to me are a bit awkward because they remove the horror aspect because somebody actually found them, I guess. It's like, okay, well, this supposed to be this lore and this horrible thing, and then a bunch of people are sitting around watching it or whatever, it doesn't make any sense. If there was a dumb decision to make, everybody in this movie made the dumbest decision all the time. To your point earlier about the feet, there's waterproof boots. I know there are. These people were completely unprepared to go into this woods and find somebody who had been living there for 10 years. Apparently, that was their theory. This girl was living in the woods for 10 years. Okay, they could have set trail cams up. There was there's all kinds of stuff they could have done, and they just didn't bother. They had one drone and Bluetooth earpiece cameras, which was stupid. The Witch, I enjoyed seeing The Witch as opposed to the first one, where it was just kind of there was no actual monster. It was just the existential horror threat of noises. I thought there was a lot of bears in this movie because the sound sounded like a bunch of bears running around. I thought I had to check the title. I was like, is this the Bear Witch? The house, I didn't even understand the time thing, be honest with you. I was like, okay, it's still dark. I thought that was the whole thing. They're like, oh, it just stays dark all the time. And at what point did the witch learn how to block technology? She's from 1,000 years ago, and she knows how to block GPS. I mean, come on, I don't buy it.
In all fairness, I'm waiting that happens in real paranormal stuff now.
I'm wondering when Elon Musk is going to come up with some witch-proof batteries. That's what I like.
Well, apparently they did in this movie because we have the recordings.
And that one girl pulled a lizard out of her leg or something. The one with the hurt foot. I was like, and then she's just like, I'm gonna climb this tree. I just pulled a lizard or whatever out of my leg. Or was that supposed to be a root? I don't know.
It was like a root.
It is a root.
Yeah. So she was like a tree lady.
Yeah, she kind of ish.
It doesn't make any sense. I mean, I don't. Why would you?
I think she's the because technically she's not a tree. She's the forest. It's her forest.
It's an elemental kind of thing.
Yeah.
Didn't make any sense.
That's why we burn the forest down.
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, I wouldn't ever watch this movie again.
That's the smartest thing anyone's ever said, Jeff. Thank you.
This may be worse than another movie that me and Eli talk about a lot, so I don't want to get into it.
I love bad movies.
Does it start with A and end with antlers?
No. It starts with V and ends with empires.
That's a rough
one is bad.
I wish he would have showed up in this movie, Jack.
You know what I am disappointed about this, though?
He could have found mahogany, that's for sure.
I was going to say, no one looked at the witch and go, you got mahogany?
Maybe she was just misunderstood, you know?
Yeah. So for me, this is not something I saw in theaters. I saw the marketing for it, and I was totally not interested in this because on the opposite end of the spectrum for reasoning, I really enjoyed the original, as you all know. If you've listened to our pilot episode, we did the original Blair Witch Project. So I saw this as it was a money grab. It was when everybody was doing their requels and remakes and all of that. Everybody was double dipping. Every studio was doing it. And from the moment I saw the trailer, I knew that it was the exact opposite of everything that I liked about the original movie. Like, it wasn't shoestring, it wasn't down and dirty, it wasn't indie, it didn't have any of that stuff that makes, and to your point, John, that the stuff that, in my opinion, that makes found footage work is that it is lo-fi. There was nothing lo-fi about this movie. I did enjoy a couple of the references they made and a couple of the Easter eggs to the original story when I finally saw it. But I've watched it only a couple of times since that first viewing, but I didn't see it for several years after it came out, not until it was on some streaming service to where they were not going to get any of Dave's money directly for making this movie.
Good choice.
But when I did finally see it, and especially when I watched it this last time, I did find it interesting. And I don't know, I haven't looked into any of the interviews from the director or the writer, but there's a lot of the stuff that's in this, to your point about the logic of the rules and there not being a logic to the rules. There's a lot of that in European fae stories. And the Blackwoods Forest does have the sort of the feel of a fae bridge story, a fae bridge being when somebody doesn't realize they've transitioned from the quote unquote real world to the fairy world, because fairy rules are weird. And there are rules like if you don't look at it, it won't attack you, or that time does weird stuff, or you can wander off, and all that. So from that point, I could enjoy that there were these things that were happening that didn't make sense to me and didn't make sense to the characters in the movie that were very fey. But the characters themselves were totally unlikable. They were, in my opinion, they were even less likable than the original people, which is a problem, because if the whole anxiety of horror is tied up in me caring about bad things happening to people, and I am looking forward to bad things happening to those people, then it's not horror anymore. Then it's just a anticipating action kind of thing. And the main kid, James, the fact that he's an emergency medic is horseshit. There was no evidence of that in any way, shape, form, or fashion in all the decisions he made. So and it didn't, and I don't know if any of you all have any insight. I don't know why they did that. What was the point of referencing that he was an emergency medic? Because it didn't add anything to the story.
Call back to the books.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God. Sorry.
Wow.
Well, joke's on them. I don't read. So.
Well, that must not have been in the one of the whole series that I read. But
well, it depends. Did you read the teenage one or the young adult one?
I have no idea.
It's in the young adult one.
Okay. Well, anyway, he was a horrible emergency medic.
Yeah.
It's not even that he was a nurse. He was an emergency medic. First aid and first responder stuff is what he's supposed to be really good at. And he literally did not wash out her wound and wrapped it with the nastiest bandage I've ever seen in my life, threw it back in her dirty shoe and told her to walk. Fantastic.
He didn't even spit on it first.
Not only that, that was
walk it off.
That was like the start of their hike. Now nothing about this. I just want to say, like, someone brought it up, Jeff, John, Eli. No, it was either like, I don't know what the logic behind this, what seems like maybe a sane human being thought his sister was still alive and just hanging out in woods after 10 years.
Yeah.
Like, that is beyond me. Like, that's
call the police.
Like the plot They have the whole thing that the whole FBI searched the woods or whatever. They say that.
Well,
but like, or like a private, but like a
he's
private
insisting
investigator.
Well, so that's my the big problem is just the plot of this movie. Like that he thinks his sister is just hanging out in the woods for 10 years and surviving. But that's his motivation. So theoretically, you could do this on any weekend. You can go look for her because you've obviously waited 10 years to do this. So now
wasn't urgent.
Now the girl splits her foot open. This is all I'm trying to get to. She splits her foot open. What seemed like fairly early in the hike. Don't you say like, let's go get her medical attention. We'll do this next weekend or something. Yeah. Like it's just like the fact that they
the hike's over at that point.
Yeah, this girl who really didn't have interest. We know that because she's kind of just like along for the ride. It seems that's the way they play it. The only two people who are invested here is James and maybe Sarah. Am I guessing that name? I don't.
Lisa.
God damn it! Where am I getting these names from?
They don't matter.
They don't matter. That's the problem. But I usually write them down, and I did it for some reason. So Lisa and James are the only ones invested really in this.
Yeah.
We've got
and the locals.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. The two that just want to be, but I didn't even bring them up. So then we've got his, I guess, best friend, childhood friend, and what seems like his girlfriend. I'm guessing is the dynamic here. So she's obviously just along for her boyfriend's best friend. Mm-hmm. She doesn't want to be there. She has no interest in hiking. She splits her foot open, and no one says, "Let's just go back, clean you up. We'll continue this another day." Like it's
because that movie's 20 minutes and that makes money.
I know, but like it's just like when you do and this is just movie making in general, and a lot of movies, but when you do something so illogical, then don't expect me not to get hung up on half.
Well, it breaks your
like, so dumb.
It breaks the mystic for you. And like, the last couple of things I'll say, and then we'll jump into it. But I did think. And we'll talk about this more.
I'm sorry, I didn't know I cut you off.
No, it's okay. We were talking about the EMT stuff, which I'm glad you mentioned because I agree completely. But I do think that there were a couple of the practical effects that were pretty darn good. Like I thought they were fun little things, and I'd forgotten, and I went back and looked at when these movies came out, like The Conjuring and what's the other one? With the
Insidious,
yeah, the whole freaking
the Wandaverse.
Jumping into frame Bagul horseshit that they did 20 times in this movie drove me crazy.
Sinister, that's a good one.
Sinister, that's the one. Yeah, but anyway, their whole they didn't have jump scares; they had frame jumps, and you know they're coming because you can see the way the camera is locking into a position. You know it's coming, and then they literally scream into the camera and jump into frame. It's not scary the first time, much less the 30th time that they do it in this movie.
I'm glad you said that because I have a note right on top of the whole page that says this movie loves jump scares that don't work. That was it.
Yeah, it's literally like your dad jumping out of a door frame and going boo. That's what they do.
But he's like waving his hand in the door frame, like, "Hey, look over here, look over here."
Got him.
You.
So anyway, those are my overall thoughts. But go ahead, Jamie. What were we wanting to jump into? You had a question.
No. That's all. No, that's what I was just agreeing with that. And then before I was just going off the medic thing, like you said. Like I just like that starts the whole movie, and that's early in the movie. But like there's dumber decisions made even before that. But I'm just saying, like the fact that they even bring the locals is dumb decision number one. Like,
why were those
locals? You don't get along with them. You don't need them.
Because they said they're the ones that took he took the YouTube footage. Yeah.
He found
but
it.
Why did they go? Why did the locals decide to go into the woods? They're like, people are dying out here. Oh, well, I'm just going to
because they're studying they said they were studying the Blair Witch.
Yeah, that was their reasoning.
I think they were studying. We heard there was a meth pile out here, and we wanted to see that. But we're going to call it the Blair Witch. Don't mind us missing teeth.
That's kind of rude. They were perfectly nice people.
There's another way you could write those people in. Like you could. It's just everything in this movie has like that nonsensical or lazy writing, and I'm just confused by it.
The problem was against the first one specifically. For this to be a found footage movie, it was dramatically overwritten and acted. They didn't. It seemed fake.
Fair point.
They were trying too hard to be real with everything they did, and it came off being just terribly fake. You're like, this is just a bad movie. It's not found footage. They found it in the dumpster and decided.
And like we've discussed, regardless of the fact of how passionately I hate the Blair Witch and how passionately some people love the Blair Witch. No, but we've like discussed that the one thing that like worked in that movie was the marketing and people thinking it was real and the low budget. And we know that they let them basically just go at it. They didn't really have a script. They kind of winged it. There was a lot of natural stuff happening there. But like this can't do that again. Nobody could do that again. So it's like stupid to even like try and write a follow-up to this, because I guess my question, I guess I'm on a tangent, but like I have it in my notes, like, why was this made? Like who, besides the cash in, I guess, as Dave was saying about like cashing in on remakes and requels and whatever, but like even
because
then,
the
does
game
the
was
Blair
real
Witch
popular.
was it real popular? I mean,
The game was actually that game was actually a really popular game, and then there's a YouTube channel that started doing videos. And then at Comic-Con, like it was like picking up a little bit of steam at Comic-Con. They're like, well, everybody, guess what? Boom,
I don't know.
boom, Blair Witch.
I'm gonna need
like,
to see some sales figures and
because
active player base
there's
count,
1, 2,
because
3,
I don't know about
4.
that.
Wait, there's 5 of us here, and I'm pretty sure all of us
it
have
was
played games.
the
How
Blair
many
Witch
people here
was
besides Eli have played this game?
no, it was like one of the
Yeah, I
biggest
never
games
played.
on
Okay,
Twitch.
no,
It was one of the biggest games on Twitch for a while.
I'm just saying.
What year?
I mean,
this
are
movie
they
came out in
trying
2016.
Are they trying to
Like 15?
reintroduce a younger audience to this movie? Seems reasonable to
I
remake
guess,
it. However,
yeah,
however, why make a sequel
Yeah.
to a movie if you're trying to reintroduce people to it? Because then you're just all they can do is literally just they could just go back and watch your first movie, and then everything's ruined anyway. You know, like it doesn't make much sense. It wasn't a great tactic, you know?
Right. My big issue with this was like we all know the first one's fake now, right? Like that was the big marketing of the first one. It's real, right?
That's the problem
so
here.
my thought is, if you want to do a continuation of that story, don't make it found footage. Do a movie, and you do a sequel to movie, because we all know it's a movie now, right? And then they could have actually made it scary. They're not falling on the found footage tropes. Or the second thing is just straight reboot, new characters, whatever. Like, or like make it like Origins or something. Do something else. Like,
I think the problem is, well, first of all, didn't the second one try and do that? The old second one, wasn't it not found footage? Wasn't it like
it's not found footage?
But it had nothing to do with the first one.
But it's the best one.
Yeah.
I think we've all touched upon it, though, even you saying that. I think the problem is that movie, whether you liked it or didn't like it, the thing around it was that it's something we'll never get again. We won't. Yeah. People thought it was real. It was a phenomenon. It was such a phenomenon that it still carries into today, which is why they thought it was relevant. Timing. But you take that out of the Blair Witch, whether you love it or hate it, and like it's really not a movie of substance to make more of them. Because the thing that made it what it was the original, I'm not trying to say it was the first, but the original found footage documentary, maybe this is real, fucked up situation of it.
And that's the only way you could tell this story today is through a documentary. Do a fake documentary, about the Blair Witch, and then you can talk about the missing kids, talk about what happened. There's so many. That's the only way you can do it. And I would actually probably be interested in seeing that version, because then I don't have the shaky camera and stupid kids running over. I just get to hear weirdos talk about stupid kids. And Eli, the game didn't come out till 2019, so it did not come out.
Not the new game.
Oh, there was
well, how many games do they have of this nonsense?
There's 3. Well, there's the original, which was like
the
CD-ROM games.
Yeah. And
then Lord.
Then there was
Joe Charmy's
the Flash game that was real popular on Twitch for a while. It was like a puzzle game.
To John's point, that has nothing to do with the games, is that it's funny you say that, because most of the found footage I like is actually mockumentary. Like I love The Last Exorcism, and it's because you could explain why people are being filmed. Right. I think the problem with a lot of found footage for me is, why the fuck are you filming this? Why are you wasting film recording these locals in the first place? Like there was no need to record the meeting. There's definitely no reason to record you going outside to speak about them. Like it's like, and I get so lost in these stupid moments that I'm like,
Jeff and I do that all the time, don't we, Jeff?
There was no reason to record in a loud dance club, by the way. That had nothing to do with this documentary on
Well, you know what's
So
weird too
anyway-
is they had that towards the end. They had the camera that was overlooking the camp, but they didn't put that camera up in the beginning to catch the locals hanging all those little things up.
Mhm.
I'm like, what? You know what I mean? Like it just seems so stupid. They're like, we're going out of these woods where your sister disappeared. We searched for him with the FBI for all this search party.
But we're gonna find him.
Yeah, 4 kids who don't know anything and the worst paramedic in the world, 2 local yokels. They're gonna find your sister who's been missing for 10 years. Maybe she don't want to be found.
Yeah.
Robert or whatever your name is. Maybe
she saw you
like
put
it.
a Band-Aid on something. Was like,
she's
nope.
like, look, stay away from me. I don't want to get infected. Like
And Jaime talking about the nightclub scene with those stupid ear cams. They kind of missed the cheesy opportunity for the boyfriend and the girlfriend to be like getting close and him keeping the camera on. I mean, and then it cutting away. They missed that opportunity. That would have been like the perfect like teen horror moment.
It's like.
Are you saying the witch was in the nightclub?
She should have been. That would have been dope.
Hey, what do you think was doing the? That was the witch.
I mean, when the girl is.
Hey,
filming,
honey, come dance over here.
Oh man, if
The
I ran
girl-
into Sheila at a nightclub, I swear I'd be getting down on that.
when they take the poles out of this place.
It's when Eli stopped coming.
Maybe this is just Sheila's backstory. You know?
The Blair Witch.
Yeah, it's possible.
She was
I
just
thought
like,
that was. I thought when she first peeked out from behind a tree, that was who it was. You know?
she's just a dirty tree lady
Yeah.
who lives in a shack in the woods.
Hey kids, stay away from my house. I got some stuff in there. I don't want you getting that.
Explains the time dilation.
is if someone. So since I didn't play the video games or read the book series or anything else that apparently you need to understand this movie, like. Is it just Heather living in the house? Where's Mike?
No, it's not really. So basically, what they
Is
explain.
it a mirage of Heather?
No,
Okay.
it's basically what
It's really Heather.
Kind of. Basically, what you have is
Heather the witch.
no ish.
So
Basically,
is Heather and James one person?
I'll fucking explain it if you give me a minute.
Jesus Christ.
Is Heather
Basically,
naked?
was
Heather the witch?
I don't know. No,
Is the witch
anyway.
George Washington?
Oh, Jesus Christ, no. Basically, between the 2 books and the game, what you find out, because the game kind of built off the most recent game built off the book series. Basically, it's not called this, but basically what the witch has is a pocket dimension. So her
Sorry.
shack
Do
in
they
the
play
forest-
pool there?
They do play pool there. Is
Mm.
she basically has it cut off from real time, and so it's a constant loop. The reason she does that is because she feeds off the suffering and life force. So basically, you're either going to go in there, look at her, and fuck up, but she's just going to eat you then. Or part of the lore is when she would bring those children, or Parson would bring the children in, is if they stood in the corner and didn't look, they would let them stand there and live. As soon as they turn around and look, he would kill them. So that's the thing, because you stand there, but then you stand there and suffer. She feeds off more of your suffering. And then she'll use that loop to interact with the outside world to people that you're connected to bring more people there.
Wouldn't
So
it be nice if this was in the movie?
yeah, it's crazy because if you the one series was about Heather's niece, so this D-bag's daughter. Technically, this movie's not made because he dies because he's probably the worst paramedic. He probably had scurvy or something. I don't know.
But Heather's not standing in the corner. In this movie, Heather is like walking about.
It's an image because Heather's in a loop.
Yeah, but
She was too
she's in a
busy playing
loop
the Blair
doing
Witch
what?
game
Standing in the corner?
Yes.
Or she's in the corner?
Because when they're in there, you're catching glimpses of the other times that is happening in the blip. And like Parsons, you find out, is actually like she keeps him alive because she has it. Like they thought they killed him, but like you find like an image of him is actually kept alive to do her bidding. And as long as he stays within the loop, he can go between the different time loops, because basically like Heather and Mike are in one loop, right? Then like some other idiot camper they're in a separate loop, and sometimes they're seeing like after images of each
like
other.
a double exposure on a
Yes,
film.
kind of. But like they can't really interact with each other.
This is so dumb. Like,
Eli,
I'm
can you
sorry.
explain the movie
Seems like-
Tenet to
like,
me?
It just seems like an excuse for a bad movie. It's what it seems like.
Hey, I didn't write some bitch.
But you read it.
I read the books. Yeah, the books are actually pretty good. I like the
So-
I like the young adult one. better
Wait,
with
did you
Heather
reference
Reese.
the Alan Parson project?
I did reference the Alan Parsons. Project,
Okay, I
sure.
thought that's what you said, Alan Parson.
No, I did. Sure.
Alan
did.
Parsons.
Because,
probably
like,
So
good.
who was that guy? I because they just briefly offhand mentioned the guy who captured children.
Parson. Yeah. Mhm.
That was Parson. Okay.
Yeah, and then basically what happens is like because here's where you get real weird, which they didn't explain because she was then basically turning the yokel guy into the new Parson because
I was going to say
he
that's why
was
he said
aging.
that,
yeah, he was aging and he was there and he
Yes.
wasn't standing in
That
the corner.
Was
And
he
he
aging
also-
or did he just get dirtier? Because I don't
He
think
just
he was
got dirty.
aging. Like,
Well-
he was
Hairier.
Parson.
Well, because it's like hair grew
Yeah, he
out,
just
so
got
it's
hairier. He didn't really.
it's like
I thought he just. I thought he just didn't comb his hair.
No, he's becoming the next Parson. So basically, like he goes insane and he just goes between these loops because like that's what like in like the one book like that's how she wore Parson down is because it said he wandered. He felt like he wandered 100 years in that forest trying to find a way out, and he kept coming back to the shack. And then all of a sudden, he's back out of the shack, and she's like, "Go get children." He's like, "All right, will you let me out?" She's like, "Maybe." And then she did it.
So what is the writer's decision for not putting any of this in this movie?
I'm
For-
assuming
like,
they
doing
didn't
it,
read
but
the
not-
books, or they're
Well,
like, "Oh,
well,
that's
they
kind of
got the
cool."
idea for some of this. They
They-
got the
they
idea.
probably, based on the dialogue in this movie, they probably didn't understand the books.
So you're telling me the writer of the infamous classic movie Frankenfish didn't read the source material and include it in this wonderful movie he wrote that we all just watched?
I legit think one of his assistants read it. It was like, "Oh, that was kind of cool, that time loop stuff." He's like,
Dude,
"Fuck it, let's put time loop in there."
The guy
He's
who wrote
like, "Oh, do you wanna know
Frankenfish,
how
he
it
don't
works?"
have
He's like-
assistants.
No,
You don't have assistants.
Nah,
What am I, a scientist? Why do I need to know how to time loop works?
And for the listeners that might be a little confused for the last few minutes when Eli was referencing Parsons, he's talking about Rustin Parr. That's
or Rustin Parr. Why was I calling him Parsons?
I don't know.
That's what I'm calling
Just
him.
wanted to
Rustin Parr.
clarify
Thank
that
you.
for anybody
Rustin- I
out
don't
there
know-
that was screaming at their windshield.
I don't know why I was calling him Parsons. Yeah, Rustin Parr, whatever.
I don't even know who that is.
Because
Parsons that's a more friendly name. If you're like,
Yeah,
hey,
it's
I'm
Parsons,
Parsons,
yeah.
come to my dirty house here. You're like,
Yeah,
all
we'll
right.
call him
Yeah, if
Rusty-
you introduce yourself as Rustin
Yeah.
Parr, we know you're a serial killer.
Yeah,
or I'll
we-
say
that's a
Rusty
straight up
Sheriff's
serial-
Badge Parsons.
Whoa,
Oh, Lord.
whoa.
But like,
What's what's that mean?
you know exactly what it means. If you read the one where like it's about Heather's niece, it's all about Rustin Parr and like her figuring this out and like trying to find the witch. And like the other thing too is like why the police can't find anything. Like she figures out is because the witch won't let them in like this pocket dimension, but she wants Heather's niece because she wants to eat her soul.
It's just
That old chestnut.
the fact that you need to know all of this to know what's happening in this dumb movie is like illogical.
Well,
And I don't think you do. I don't think.
Yeah, but I just don't think they did a good enough
Well, then- but
job
then I
as
had
presenting the
no idea
logic
what-
to the
Yeah,
loop.
exactly. All I knew is that there was a time loop, and it's only because it's been said twice, and the video in the beginning was at the
Yeah.
end. Like as soon as
Right.
they show the video, that was not lost to me. I said, "Oh fuck, that's the video from the beginning. That's her. That's not Heather. I get it."
Yeah.
But then there's nothing.
You know what though? That's not even the worst part of this movie, Jamie. Because
No,
I'll
the
tell you,
whole
which I
terrible.
didn't, because I'd forgotten about this. Because it's been a while since I watched it, and then I forgot about it till I rewatched it this time, and I was like, "Oh, this may be the most annoying scene I've seen in television." Is at the
No.
very end when for like I don't know, what felt like 17 minutes, I had to fucking listen to her hyperventilate into the camera.
Oh my god! Don't
at that
turn
high
around.
pitch.
Yeah.
You
No,
didn't
I-
see the first one then. You
Yeah,
gotta watch
well,
the first
come
one.
on.
No, listen, there's a difference. There's
No,
a difference between
there
those
really
scenes. Like
isn't.
she is like just not talking, hyperventilating, and like it squeaks at the end. Like she
Why
sounds
was
like
that tunnel
a
there?
chew
Why-
toy.
Oh,
Why
the
was that
tunnel
tunnel there?
scene.
That's well, once again, like I know in the books, like
Ugh.
Rustin Parr a tunnel. That's how he got out of the.
Mm.
That's how he got through the loop or the pocket dimension.
Was I the only one
But-
that was hoping that tunnel would collapse on her head?
I thought it was going to.
I thought she was just going to be
suffocate in
stuck there. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
I thought she
And
was
then she's like, she's standing there, and the guy obviously got clubbed by the witch or whatever she does. Like, and like, then he's like, oh, hey, Lisa or whatever. And then she turns around. I'm like, are you stupid? What's wrong with you?
Oh yeah, she's saying don't look. She's like, don't look at, don't turn around, don't look, don't turn around.
He's like standing there and he's like, like and she's like, no, wonder what happened over there. Better go check it out. Like,
yeah, because I think he goes, I'm sorry. And she's like, what?
No, he calls her name. He's like, Lisa. She's like, hey, guy that just got hit by this witch.
I
bet
sorry.
Okay. And like, she was one of the only ones I think to see the witch. At least they showed her seeing it, you know. And she's like, in this house. I'm like, are you the dumbest person on the planet or what?
Yes.
You know?
Yes,
I feel like her.
I
feel like her Medusa plan. It's like Jason and the goddamn Argonauts over here. I was waiting for her to pull up a shield and be like,
that was a good plan. That was a good plan. I don't see that.
Actually, like it sounded like Congo.
Again,
like the part
Eli
where all the
didn't
apes
watch
were
the
fighting.
first one. Jamie,
She
let's
did
go
not make
rent him
those
the first
noises.
one so he can watch it and revisit
Dave,
the hyperventilating thing.
Back me up. She did not make those noises.
No, she just had snot. She had bubbling snot coming out.
I would rather have that than her sound like one of my dog's chew toys.
My biggest surprise was that this ended and it said, I guess directed by Adam Wingard. And I was like, what the fuck? Not that his movies are like all the way up here, but like, I like You're Next. I like, you know, like, I was just like, fuck, what the fuck?
Well, they're working on a TV show now.
Of what, this?
A Blair Witch TV show?
They're doing a TV show.
How's that possible?
Fucking ridiculous.
Is it found footage TV show?
They haven't. There's not. It's still.
We found a television series.
Yeah.
It's a weekly episodic found footage.
I mean, it might be okay if it's based on the books and set up like an actual story rather than just because the story's interesting. But yeah, the found footage thing is just.
Or if they did like a prequel before she became a.
No, they just. Well, they got to let the found footage
tell me the story
before she became what a
it would have to be a period piece,
or like
of how the witch
of like before she became like a elemental or.
Is there any ties to Baba Yaga with this witch?
It's similar.
One of the bases,
because she has kind of the whole like her hut can it can go. It can transcends dimensions and time and like that kind of stuff. I just didn't know if there was any actual
Baba Yaga is based on, to Dave's point, Baba Yaga is based on Fae.
Yeah,
she's one of the Fae,
right?
The Blair Witch. One of a lot of Faes have their pocket dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Fae
like
world or whatever, the Fae Wild or whatever it is a different plane or dimension of existence mirroring our
or
existence.
like if you look at like some like the Scandinavian elves, they had their own dimension, these logs. So like you had a log, but you could never look inside see your elf because like they had their own.
Well, right, because they're all linked back to the Fae dimension or whatever the situation is. So.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a couple of questions.
Oh, sorry, Dave.
No. I've been very quiet because I've been enjoying the conversation, but just overall, better or worse than the original?
Worse
than the original and every other movie related to it.
I guess worse, which is funny because remember I told you guys that it can only go, there's nowhere for it to go. Apparently it can.
Well, and that's the reason I asked the question, and that's the reason I put it down, because if anybody's listening to the original episode, I had mentioned it and Eli agreed that my assumption is you would like this more than you like the original, because the biggest problem with this movie, and we've talked around it, in my opinion, the biggest problem with this movie is that it is a market research piece. It's a case study on what everybody complained about in the first one. Like if you hated the first one, you mentioned the footage and that nothing was ever shown, nothing happened, that nothing was focused on. There was no set pieces. The people were annoying. And this movie is sort of somebody trying to write something without having any knowledge of folklore, any knowledge of sort of how that storytelling system works, putting a movie together to make a quick buck. I genuinely, that's the reason I had mentioned that I thought y'all would like this more, was only because a lot of the complaints you had in the original review that we did of the original movie was about the poor footage, that the actors were terrible, all of the things that I enjoyed about it being having a realism in a found footage kind of way. Obviously, we know it's not a real thing that happened, but I was much more easily capable of buying into that universe than I was this universe. Like this universe was 100% polished studio movie trying to pretend that it was a found footage movie, which you've got to give one of those two things up because you can't have both. And there's been a ton of movies to prove my point that have tried that, because everybody thought they could make a found footage movie there for what, 5 or 6 years, and they were all garbage because they tried to use a formulaic studio way of making movies to tell these stories, and you can't do it that way. So that's why I asked the questions, and why, just as an explanation of why I thought you two at least would have enjoyed this more, only because it does have effects and things happen. Because I know Jaime, I know your big complaint in the first one was nothing happens.
Yeah, but barely anything happens in this one. Like you can't just do the bit. You can't say like 0 happens in this one, so we'll do 2. Like that doesn't.
Excuse me, someone pulls a stick out of their foot and then climbs a tree.
Well, to answer your question,
Two
Dave,
things
I didn't
happen.
answer yet. This one is worse. And the only reason why it's worse is not for all the things that they added to it, because I did like those things. Those were the like few aspects I liked, is when they showed stuff. It's like, okay, that's creepy. However, you don't have the time capsule of 1999 where you did fool everybody for like 15 minutes until we all saw your trash movie, that it was real. And that's it. Literally, it felt like the same movie, because all the polish to me didn't come through as polished, except when they used special effects in the creepy house. That's like where all their budget went.
Yeah, because the acting was just as terrible. Even though
they
this is
had
now
a drone.
this is
John.
now scripted and
I
terrible.
had that drone, Eli, and it's not even controlled right. I wasn't even going to pick that nit until you brought it up.
You know what? I never seen no
can't
found footage from you, so I don't believe
I
you.
think
can't
that made
control.
I think that made the actors so much worse, because they were trying to be bad, and it just made them just absolutely terrible. They were trying to be like amateur actors, and it came off just ridiculously fake. You know what I mean? I would rather have bad actors being bad than actors that are trying to act bad, you know, if that makes sense.
I was really hoping for a different movie.
Why didn't they at least, we can't recapture what the original one did, but why didn't they at least, and I know you're going to say movie studio, whatever, but like, why didn't they at least try to film it the same way? Like, just give them points to hit and like make them kind of like ad lib some stuff or scare them on their own. Like, why didn't they try any of those tactics again?
And I don't know, but my assumption is because there's this body of audience that raged against that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is
that was a point that people hated about.
No, but these actors were just as bad. And if we're trying to say they were trying to be natural, like whatever, like they were bad.
I believe the original plan is that they wanted to make it a more commercially accepted film, because they wanted to follow the Paranormal Activity track, where they were going to do a bunch of sequels to this, and then like this one didn't do as well as they thought it would, and then they kind of like moved it, and then the new game came out that did pretty good, and then they greenlit this TV show. So like I think they were trying, instead of like, to your point, dude, I think they were just trying to make it more commercially accepted, because they were going to follow the same equation for the Paranormal Activity. Because I think the rumor was, like, I think they had a sequel set up, and it was going to be the parents of that yokel's girlfriend or something, like some weird horse shit.
The one that got snapped in half.
Yeah, like they were gonna find some, like the drone or some horse shit, and like they were gonna go probably barefoot out into the woods to find their youngin. Like they had all these plans for like this extended Blair Witch universe, and like it fell through.
Who's putting out the
remember
TV
that?
Oh,
I was just gonna say, remember, just a couple of years before this, Fede Alvarez had a huge hit with a remake that doesn't use any of the original beats, but it jumped up the gore and it jumped up the action and it moves at a faster pace. So you can see sort of the fingerprints of that sort of mentality on this movie, that's what they thought they needed to do to make this work. Now, in this universe, that doesn't work, in my opinion. And it sounds like we're all in agreement on that this universe calls for a different touch than what Fetty did with the Evil Dead franchise, but there's no denying that it's obvious that that's what he's trying to reach for, is that kind of thing.
Well, here's the thing. It doesn't work for people who really like the original because it's a totally, and I get that. But if it's someone like me who hated the original because it's missing all the stuff, like, my God, if he would have tried to reach Evil Dead theatrics with this, I would have come to you today probably and said it's much better than the original for me. Like, to your point, Dave, like, would I like this one better? But I just don't think for all my complaints of the first one, I don't think they fixed any of them in this one. Yeah, they showed me a few things. The only like, and I hesitate to use gore because there is no gore in this movie really, besides a slice in her foot. But the only scene I kind of appreciated was the girl folding in half, and it happened so fast, but like, it was fun. And see, I say funny, but like funny. It was the only cool kind of like, oh fuck, they are gonna do something. But I will say that, like, I even had up until that point, I was so bored. Nothing was happening again. I was shaking through the woods again. I just had stutter and static in my camera instead of just like darkness. And it's just like, the few things that happened were not enough to me to change this and give people like me then a different Blair Witch that I could look at and say, like, well, I like they went this direction, and now, like, at least there's something in the Blair Witch series that I like. Like, I still think it was tame and dull. Like, I
thought that girl tripped hard. I was like, wow, she is clumsy.
She's a folding chair.
I rewound it because I was like, why did she go down? Like, she went down hard. I was like, man, what did she trip on? Like, and I was like, oh, it's a voodoo doll or whatever.
Yeah, it's like, because the other girl snaps it, right? The other girl takes it and snaps it, and she just
so once again, never once did they reference anything like that. They're just like, oh, my hair. Ooh. Like,
and now she's the limbo champion of the world.
Yeah, she wins.
And if you have to travel, she'll fit right underneath your front seat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who is making the TV show? I'm just kidding. Do we know where it's going?
I originally it was supposed to go to FX, but I believe it was then purchased.
The CW.
No, surprisingly, no, I believe that Amazon purchased it. I think.
Oh, okay.
Wait, Dave, was it Amazon that purchased it?
I was just looking it up because I wasn't sure.
I thought FX. I know FX had it for a while
too.
I don't know, but that witch pushed that lady out of the tree too. Did you catch that?
Yeah,
that was ignorant. That was just straight ignorant.
That's her tree.
Ignorant.
I mean, don't you think? Oh, is it her tree? I mean, she owns all the trees. I mean, she was climbing up there to get that cool drone. She could have just, I don't know, put another snake in her leg or whatever. She didn't have to push her out of the tree.
I also
rude.
know.
I thought that was hilarious, though, by the way, when she reaches for the drone and literally an arm comes and smacks her.
Yeah. I was like, whoa. She's like, got you.
I know that.
My drone now.
Actually, John said he has the drone.
Yeah, they should have showed her flying the drone around like after people and stuff. That was awesome.
Help
Come back here, children.
Actually, here's an article from last year.
Lord. It got canceled.
No, Lionsgate purchased the right, and they're going to turn the TV series back into a movie.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I will not be watching that one.
I think this was the Blair Witch in high school.
Oh, there she is.
Sheila.
Oh, my God.
That's her in high school? I mean,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why did she...
It was a rough high school.
So just general consensus. Did the witch design itself, did it work for you?
Dave, my brain was just going there. I was about to, like, it's funny. I was about to say, not that question, but I was going to ask why she designed like that. Like, she looks like an alien, kind of, more than she looks like a witch. Right. I don't think it works for me.
The thing that doesn't work for me is the whole Fae aspect, because her background story was this lady that was hung from a tree and stretched out, whatever. So if she's a human that got stretched out because they had hung rocks to her to quarter her, why did she become a Fae? That doesn't make any sense.
Well, that's what's weird, because I wish they kind of kept with like the thought process of the original, was that like she was a witch, they killed her,
like an
and
actual
her spirit
witch,
haunted like that area, and like she wouldn't let go, and like she fed off people's spirits and tormented whatever, and like they went like this weird direction, and she was like a treant, and like I didn't like it. I would almost rather them not show me anything again.
I mean, unless they were saying, okay, they're saying she died in the woods and she was a tall boy because she got stretched out.
Yeah.
Was that kind of what they
Oh,
were
like
going
tall boy,
for?
low
I
bar.
mean,
You
yeah,
guys
like
thought about this a lot more. I just thought she looked creepy.
No, I thought she looked like an alien was my first. I literally turned
That's
and
cool.
said, why she looked like
She-
an alien? Because she's
she
a
ain't
witch.
getting out of the Close Encounters spaceship, that's for sure.
I expected exactly what Eli was saying in if I was going to get more of the lore of the witch, which I know I don't pay attention too much to the first one because I don't like it, but I know that when they're interviewing the townspeople, you are getting some facts about her. I do know that. And I know they tried to do it here with the two people they bring, the two locals, because the locals are trying to tell them about the Blair Witch. Now, all that is fine, but I want my witch story to be a witch. And I kind of don't want a time travel, which I guess could deal with witches, but I don't. In my head, I want more of the Lori old school kind of like haunting witches, and I've read some books.
But you hated
witches,
the
like,
witch.
but no, not that. But like, I wanted her to be I want her to be when they came out. At first, I didn't even. I mean, I did say, "Why does the witch look like an alien?" But I'm like, maybe that's not even the witch because, like, I mean, she looks kind of comical in a way that
some people theorize like, well, that's her possessing Heather. And I was like, that's even worse.
Yeah, why does Heather look like an alien then?
Yeah, I was like, that's even worse. That's even worse. And
she's just like, I don't know. I would have liked a more humanoid kind of, or just a really creepy, like really like
I legit think they did it that way because they're like, which like I get like it's her forest. She's like the plants and like that plant's grown inside of her leg and whatever. Like she's like a tree and like they made her like a tree person. And it's like, all right.
Yeah, all right.
Okay.
That's what I mean. Like, why would you just become a tree person?
Yeah,
I don't think that's how it works. I mean,
maybe
I'm no wizard. I mean,
would it have been better if they didn't show her at all?
I think so.
No,
it would have been better if she was just like even just a saggy old naked lady or something.
I think here's
the whole like tall,
You guys both brought it up. Like her backstory that keeps getting given to us is okay. She was strung up. That was a new fact, and I was like, oh, okay, like and this, that, and the other thing, but it still lives in human and reality. Like I'm never explaining the time trap. Like this is what's bothering me. Like everything I'm explained is witchiness, and like she was killed, and she used to like hunt children or eat or whatever, and like all these kind of things. And then you want to bring time travel in without explaining it to me. Makes no sense. And as far as her design, what just came to my head, and I'm not at all saying this is the best. I'm just saying, like, does anybody remember the woman in the woods in Sleepy Hollow?
Oh, yeah.
Sleepy Hollow. Okay. Yeah. Remember she changes. She's from just the witchy woman. And then the jump scare is her face. And like something like that, even that's still based in like a human kind of like, like that, like something where it's like still a human being, a witch, but you think, but she's like before,
I thought it was really cool because there's like in the one book, there's this thing where like they go in the basement and she's like a shadow basically. And like almost like a corporal shadow. And like they go in this basement and there's all these people standing in a corner and her arms are outstretched. Like something like that would even be cool. But like you have her like a crazed tree lady like like going through that barn like what I felt like at times like when she was like crawling through it real fast like I said, it was like watching Congo with those angry gorillas going through those ruins. Like at times that's what I felt like I was watching.
That association.
And like
that doesn't make any sense.
When she was going down the hallway, she's like doing that travel. At one point, I'm like, why did she stop?
She was just walking. What are you talking? Were you watching the same movie? Because she literally didn't do any of that.
Well, no, she had her arms. She was like on her arms at one point.
Yeah, there's the one scene where she's chasing her and she's like climbing through and she's grabbing the door frames and dragging herself.
Yeah, but she wasn't on all fours.
No, but like she was like she's using her arms to like help bring herself through.
And like look like a monkey. She's so tall.
Yeah, it was just dumb. And she's like crouched over, like
this is how she goes through doorways. What do you expect from her?
I guess nothing.
Hey, she'll go through those doorways.
Whoever built that house, whoever built the house, for some reason built it too small for her. Yeah.
You know what it is? The first time I showed it, Dave, the first time you see it is in the woods, I believe. Like behind
when
she
it's like a couple of frames.
Yeah. That one's not bad. And I think because at the time I didn't think it was the witch. I thought we were gonna have more going on, I guess. Like maybe she's sending things out or like whatever, because obviously the whole woods is impacted, the little figures, the time travel aspect now, because they had already announced that, I think, maybe. I don't know. But I guess, but then when I found out, like then when it's supposed to be like her, I was like, well, It's fine when it's a creepy thing in the woods. I just thought it was a creepy thing in the woods.
I feel like they straight up ripped that shot out of Bigfoot, though.
Yeah.
Isn't that what Bigfoot? He's just like,
yeah. Well, when you first see it, I was like, oh, like that's going to be her assistant. Like you're going to find out that's like Rustin
something like that.
or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And then like at the end, you're like, no, that's her. She's a tree lady. I was like,
Blair Witch has assistants?
Well, like in the legend of the Blair Witch, like there was always her and the person she forced to do her bidding.
So she like Emperor Palpatine
She's
or like a
up,
vampire with a familiar?
It's always
straight up lazy witch.
Whoa!
Yeah, because, I mean,
dare you call her lazy?
It was obvious at the end that Lane, right? I think that's his name. Lane was working for her because he hits.
Well,
the
that's
girl
that's
and,
what
it's
he
obvious.
was starting. Right?
Yeah, no, I'm saying so. Yeah, so like yes, it would make sense if she sent if the thing in the woods was something else related to her.
What's she gonna do now? Because that Lane guy got stabbed right in the face or whatever.
Yeah, and now I'm thinking about it.
That girl had that knife the whole time. The whole time she had this knife.
Yep.
Not one time pulled it out for anything.
Nope.
I'm like, the straight up first time I'd have been running through the woods, I'd have had that knife out.
Listen,
like, you never
that's
know.
her face stabbing knife, Jeff.
I guess.
There was no faces to stab at the time. She ain't gonna waste it bringing it out.
In case of emergency, unfold your knife, I guess.
Stab in a face.
Ridiculous.
They should have went home right after the girl slit her face open, and the
yeah.
whole movie should have
John, what were you about to say?
I think I kind of forgot.
Oh, okay.
The chaos ensued, and I got lost in the pocket dimension of this ridiculous conversation.
Well, I think we can all agree then, just from the conversation we're having tonight, that The Ritual is the best Blair Witch movie that's been made so far.
Dude,
Ritual.
am I right?
Not bad. Not bad.
I think I'm gonna go watch Antlers.
Oh, you son of a bitch.
I do have one more question, and then I've got a couple of fun little trivia things that I found out. But I've got to do whenever we have a group like this, we have to do the Franklin segment of the review. Who is the most hated character for each of you?
Franklin.
Franklin doesn't count.
Probably that yokel's girlfriend. I can't even think of her name.
Nah,
Just every time she opened her mouth, I was like,
purple-haired girl.
Oh my god! I was like, if I was in that force with them, and they're like, oh my god, something just dragged this person up the tree. I'd be like, oh, don't take me! I'm climbing up the tree. Get me!
Well, I just assumed she was the fairy changeling because she didn't seem human, and she seemed like she was doing a lot more controlling of what was going on.
That's all the meth she was smoking, Dave.
No, she's a fairy changeling.
You know those two were huffing propane directly from the grill tank.
They were huffing the cat litter, is what they were huffing.
Yeah, I want to say one of them, but they're written that way. You know what I mean? Even though the movie's bad, like they are written from the moment you meet them to be fairly unlikable. So I more want to say it's the people you're supposed to root for, because I don't think I liked any of them. So which one did I hate the most? It might have been it might have been Lisa. Lisa, am I getting it right this time?
Yeah. No,
it might have been Lisa. Like just because like everything about her and her like
her whole motivation is the worst.
Her motivation is terrible. Like
Lisa is the worst.
Yeah, she's pretty bad.
Because she's trying to clearly sleep with James and get on his good side. It's like, I have to help him through this. It's like,
that's what I was
known.
Sorry, no. To your point though, just wanted that reminded me. I was going to ask this question earlier. What is her motivation for this movie?
She was making. In the beginning.
She was making her own documentary. It's a Heather thing.
Yeah, the infamous nightclub.
Oh, it is a Heather thing. She's doing the same
about his best friend Robert, whatever his name is. Best friend says about, oh, you're not going to use this footage if it's whatever. So literally, her whole motivation is pointless. Like she could have been like, okay, when you guys get back, give me the film and I'll edit it or whatever. Like because she's not with the main character. Was Robert? Is that his name? I don't know.
James.
So whatever. I don't know.
And it's a documentary. There's like no moment.
It's not a documentary is my question. So my question starts off saying she's making a documentary, or he says she's making a documentary on me. Like,
no,
right?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. She's making a documentary about his trauma.
About his trauma, about finding Heather, or just about his or his.
Both.
Okay. All right.
And there's not a single moment where they have a conversation either. Like, what's your trauma?
Listen, it's no different than like Jeff's like, hey, I want to record every minute of your life. And I'm like, no, okay. I don't question it. I'm just like,
seems reasonable.
I'm gonna go take a shit. He's like, I'm coming. I'm like, all right.
Put this weird Bluetooth ear cam on.
Yeah. Oh, like
think it was
in this here.
I did think it was funny when she told the locals, "I'm going to have some releases that you're going to need to sign after this," and he goes, yeah, I'm going to have some releases you're
Yeah.
going to need to sign." Like the first time he's heard that word, obviously. But I'm in the
I
same
was saying,
boat.
who is yours? Yeah.
I'm in the same boat. I think Lisa is such a lesser Heather because I don't get any sense that she has a value in the story. She doesn't really care. She's wanting to do a thing to become successful, to do other things. Like she doesn't care about the lore. She doesn't care about the story. Doesn't give a crap about James. And their whole little romantic interlude in the tent was the most sterile, unbelievable
terrible.
thing. I'm like,
you didn't see the chemistry, Dave?
No, I wasn't picking up on it, but
just radiating off my television. You know?
But the worst mistake this movie made was making her the person that I'm supposed to relate to throughout to the end of the movie. Like I'm supposed to give a crap about all of the stuff that she's not going through anything. I mean,
no.
At least in Heather's case, I agree. And we talked about this ad nauseum on the original episode. Yes, she was the cause of all of the problems. And Mike and what's his face?
Don't remember.
We're calling her out on that. This is all your fault. And she recognizes that. And she has this moment of humanity where she apologizes. Like she totally accepts that she's screwed up and she's in way over her head. Never get any of that from Lisa. Lisa is always in control. She's always going to figure stuff out.
You know what? I figured out how they screwed up, man. They didn't bring a map.
I have one question.
Wait, I want to hear.
I have one question. Did they find the map?
No, they don't need it. Jeff, I know. I bet you I know which one. I bet you I know which person you don't like the most.
Who's your Franklin, Jeff?
I can tell you. I already know. Just looking at him. It's them boots for not being waterproof.
Well, that's the stupidest thing ever. Like they were so unprepared to go hiking, to go into the woods. I'm like, what is wrong with you people?
It's weird because they reference the creek, right? They watch his fucking sister fall in it. They know they're going to go to that creek.
Yeah. They knew exactly what they were doing, yet did nothing to prepare. Yeah, Lisa's the scumbag of the universe in this one. So
scumbag of the universe.
Yep.
She's pretty bad.
You know what we should do? We should do our own version of Blair Witch. Jamie, you can play what? 11, 12 characters?
Never going to happen.
Dave, you're going to be Rustin Parsons. Okay. Rustin Parsons is his name.
It'll only be Rusty Parsons.
Yeah, Rusty, comma sheriff, comma Parsons.
He'll be the sheriff of the town. Rusty Parsons.
Yeah, Rusty Parsons. His father's badge, but he retired.
They have to go to the Blair Witch's house to find the sheriff's badge.
Any other thoughts on Blair Witch 2016?
I can't wait for the TV show, or I guess movie now, because they're doing a movie now instead of TV show.
So I do have a couple of fun little pieces of trivia. One is they did splice, and I think you mentioned this earlier, Jamie, that they did splice a few frames of the original throughout this movie. Like there's even, she is uncredited, but Heather is shown in IMDb as being in this movie because and it was the quick shots in the house, which we all recognize those, because you could tell the 9mm or the 8mm footage there. But it's shot completely in digital. All the effects were practical, which I didn't think the witch was practical until I started looking it up. But apparently all of the effects in this movie were practical, which they get an attaboy for that.
Yeah. Did you find a picture of like what she looked like? You didn't find like movie making picture, like
behind the scenes? I didn't look.
Of her. I did. Yeah. I'm just curious, like then if she's all practical, like what?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure what Jeff's got in his background is pretty close to probably what she looks like. Yeah. It's pretty much accurate. You just put a wig on that, and you. For those that are listening to the podcast, not going to go to YouTube. Jeff's got in his background. He's got the big lanky alien from Close Encounters in his background, which is pretty much what this witch design probably looks like.
This was her first gig.
Yeah. So the original script had a lot more gore in it, which to your point earlier, Jamie, it was a much gorier movie in the original script, but the filmmakers pared it down because they felt like it didn't work within this franchise. And I disagree completely. If you're going to do the kind of movie that they did, you've got to go hard into all of the show and tell.
Agree.
They didn't.
This isn't the original. You can't recapture the original.
It
so
should not have been a found footage. It should have been a movie about the same universe. So
that would have been awesome. That would have been a much, I wouldn't say awesome, but better. Just
and again, if people do need to cross into that found footage, maybe try mockumentary instead of just found footage.
Yeah. In 2023, and they did one successfully in 2020, but I would say in 23, it's next to impossible to do a found footage movie that people would buy into.
Wait, what was in 2020?
What was the Zoom?
Oh, I hated it. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. A lot of people
but whether you hated it or liked
it was successful.
It
was successful. It was
Wait, you mean, Dave? Wait a minute. You mean you don't count Paranormal Activity Swinging on Mish as one of the best found footage ones?
I do
the
not.
Amish Paranormal Activity, where the Amish people were just fine with them running around with video cameras and eating all their butter.
Eli brings this movie up way more than I feel like
anybody
should bring up this Paranormal Activity
listen,
I've never seen.
If you're ranking the movies I hate the most, right? Antlers, hard one.
Yeah.
Paranormal Activity Swinging on Mish, pretty close second.
Yeah, pretty close. Really? I know you bring it up almost as much as Antlers, so yeah.
All I got to say is if I ever get asked by a judge in a trial that you're convicted guilty of, Eli, my number one punishment will be make this man watch Antlers every day for the rest of his life.
I will hunt you down and give him a reason.
You'll be in jail watching Antlers.
I think Eli's going to get his bed sheet out if that's the sentence that's brought to him.
I'll have Jeff because I'll be like, Jeff's gonna go to jail with me because he records my life. I'll tell Jeff, I'm like, do like they did like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. In the most awkward.
You'll get choked out in 2 seconds.
And then my last piece of fun little trivia, and this is the one that's going to infuriate John. The tunnel scene was a direct frame by frame reshoot inspired by the scenes in Aliens where Bishop has to crawl through the maintenance pipe.
Dude, shut up.
That's exactly how he framed it. He used the same storyboards to frame all of that tunnel shot.
Oh boy.
Adam Wingard, I really don't care for your attitude.
Was I the only one that thought she was going to get very cliched drag away? Like, I thought that was going to be the end scene. And I was just like, what the fuck? This is still going.
But if they did that, you wouldn't have to listen to her sound like a squeak toy for 11 minutes.
So, speaking of the tunnel scene, it was also inspired by the subject of our new show segment that Dave is calling Dave's Critter Corner. Ooh. Where I discuss an animal that was either in the movie or some other way referenced through the movie that we just reviewed. So this week, we're going to talk about the humble mole, which is the exact kind of tunnels that she was crawling through.
They are humble and graceful and
so the scene of Lisa crawling through the natural earth tunnel reminded me of these industrious little mammals. Did you know that the common eastern mole, which is what we have in our area for all of us, can dig up to 160 feet of tunnel in just one night?
Yeah.
In fact, a small mole colony can completely eviscerate an entire wildlife habitat in a matter of months, leaving other indigenous creatures to starve and die.
Well, fuck them.
These cute little creatures also decimate local earthworm and insect populations, leading to poor soil health and further impacting the wildlife ecosystem.
No one cares.
Are you going to let Dave read this?
Nope, because these are my people.
Not to mention their networks of tunnels are also there to attract rats, mice, snakes, and other invasive species that carry disease, pestilence, and ruin. So let's all applaud the work of the common eastern mole.
You're welcome.
I refuse. I won't do it.
You're welcome.
They are little assholes.
They have a job. They're here to protect you people.
I'll just refer to my background, okay?
So on that point, Eli, what are we going to be following up this movie with on Campfire Tales?
Well, there is a legend of a witch in Maryland that they believe is one of the basis the unspoken basis of the actual Blair Witch. So on
I thought it was the Bell Witch.
That was the one they credited.
Basis.
Yeah, that was a spoken one. But these people, if you ask this town of Maryland, which is a rock's throw away from where the Blair Witch is based out of, and there's parts of it that is very similar. But I think there were some rights that didn't want to be paid. We're gonna be talking about Maul Dryer. The tale of Maul Dryer.
Molly Ringwald.
A famous witch who blew out 16 candles.
Okay.
So,
When you said mall dryer, I was thinking
yeah,
like a
mall dryer.
laundromat in a
No,
mall.
she was a famous, well, not famous, infamous witch in Maryland, who you're going to find out really was just kind of minding her own business. And then the town decided, well, we're going to fuck around and find out.
Yeah, like most witches.
So that's coming up on Campfire Tales, where we'll talk about mole dryers.
Yeah, mole dryers. That's how they dry. That's how they dry their hands in the bathroom.
Mole
As
drivers.
long as the wolves don't show up, we'll be
no.
good.
That's what drives my
That's the
limo
sequel.
around the molehills.
What kind of limo do you drive? It's like a shopping cart with a
No, like
A
we got,
drying machine
it's like
on
it's like a little mining carts, you know. There's a bigger one for me, and we all go in.
What do moles
split
need
up.
mining carts for?
That's when we get around the tunnels faster.
Oh my god.
That's how they efficiently spread the disease and pestilence.
No, we kill the things that spread the diseases. How dare you?
Moles are gross.
They are
According
not.
to Wikipedia.
They
Was
are
that a mole?
humble.
That lady pull a mole out of her leg? Is that what it was?
No, that was a stick. Because
That was
moles
weird.
aren't so lame.
I
So
thought it was
thanks
a lizard.
to everybody who's listened. Welcome to season 2, where the party gets jumped up a whole notch. So we would ask you to subscribe and rate the show if you have a chance. And I think Jaime is still up for send a comment. If you're going to take the time to rate us, send us a comment. Let us know what you're thinking of what we're doing. If you want to learn more about the Wicked Wild podcast and all the other content that we have, you can go to our website at thewickedwild.com, where we have movie reviews, book reviews, special segments from our boy Joe Ferry, who's doing Regional Cinema Roadshow, where he does some cool indie movies that are tied to a specific place. And as he promised several months ago, Eli has been just tearing through some articles.
I've been working on it. Listen, man. You know, life happens. Okay, there's aliens in the sky. Shit's going on. I'm working on it, man.
Got a lot going on.
It.
I understand.
Yeah.
If you want to follow us on any social media, we're on Twitter at Wicked Wild We Are. We're on Slasher, the new horror community social media app at Wicked Wild We Are. And then you can, as we've referenced several times in this episode, you can find us on YouTube, the Wicked Wild Podcast. So you can subscribe there and hit your bell icon to get information about all of the reviews and Campfire Tales that we post up there with the videos, so you can see what we're doing and making faces at each other about throughout these episodes. Thank y'all for listening. Welcome to season 2. If you have any questions or thoughts or comments, you can always email. It comes direct to me at podcast, podcast at thewickedwild.com. And once again, we are going to, because I think the Blair Witch wants us to, maybe she's making me, I don't know. But our recommendation is that you need to get out there and get lost, because it may be the only place you can find yourself.